Hey guys. So at this point, you should have already watched the video that kind of goes over the expectations for quarter four, and also watched that Bozeman review video on population ecology. So what I'm going to do as we go through our review for our AP test is kind of create these PowerPoints just hitting the essential knowledge for each unit. You guys have your essential knowledge sheets linked in your Canvas modules for each unit that just kind of goes through and basically hits the high points of what it is that you were supposed to get from this unit. What are the major takeaways? So I'm going to review that information with you guys, hit some highlights as we break it down. So this week, our first virtual learning week of the quarter, we are going to be reviewing Unit 3, which is Population Ecology and Human Population. Now, last week during your review week, I posted up Ecology Review, so that was Units 1 and 2. If we have time, I can go back and make these presentations for those units as well. But for now, we're going to start at Unit 3, and we're going to try to get through Unit 7. As of right now, I don't know when your AP test is going to be. If they come out with a really early date for you guys to test, because remember, you're testing at home. If they come out with a really early date, I might reassess how we do our review. But for right now, I'm planning for us to test hopefully early May, which will give us a few weeks to really get this review in and also work towards perfecting our FRQ skills, because your test is only going to be on an FRQ. Okay, so today we are breaking down population ecology, and we're just going to be looking at specialist and generalist species and also R versus K selected species. So just a reminder, a specialist species tends to be advantaged in habitats that remain constant, while generalist species tend to be advantaged in habitats that are changing. So specialists have very specific niches, and remember, a niche is just an organism's role in its community or in its environment. So specialists don't really adapt well to change. So here we have koalas. So koalas are adapted to eat eucalyptus, which is very abundant in Australia. But because they are adapted to that, and that's basically like all that they eat, if something were to happen, like let's say a giant bushfire, like we know that Australia was on fire recently, it would really impact their community, their populations, because they're not very well adapted. They have very specific niches. On the other hand, generalist species, they can kind of go in and they're really adaptable. They can eat multiple food sources. They adapt well to changes in temperature, and so they're just going to be a little bit more resilient, and they're going to be able to thrive in multiple places. Yes. So K-selected species, they tend to be larger. They have few offspring per reproduction event. They live typically in stable environments. They spend a lot of energy for each offspring, mature after many years of extended youth and parental care, and they typically have longer lifespans and expectancy. They reproduce more than once in their lifetime, and then their competition for resources in K-selected species habitats is usually relatively high. Now, basically, when we're thinking about this, humans are K-selected. Elephants are K-selected. Whales, dolphins, K-selected. We don't have that many offspring. We can have offspring multiple times, so women can have multiple children, but we spend a lot of time with them. It takes a long time, 9 months for gestational period for humans, and then we as parents put a lot of time and a lot of effort into raising our kids, and we stick with them, and we put a lot of care in. We tend to live longer. Elephants live a long time. K-selected species just typically show these characteristics. But now competition for those resources in a K-selected species habitats is usually high. Our selected species, they tend to be smaller. They have a lot of offspring at once. So think about like things like frogs and fish that lay a bunch of eggs and then just like bounce. They don't really stay around to like see how the offspring do. They don't really invest a lot of energy into their children. They mature early, so meaning that their like turnaround time is not very long. So like it doesn't take long for like a frog to grow from an egg to a tadpole to a full grown frog. Flies, bugs, a lot of bugs mature really quickly. They typically have shorter lifespans, and sometimes they really only reproduce once in their life. And typically competition for resources in an R-selected species habitat is relatively low. And then just a few other things to be aware of. Biotic potential refers to the maximum reproductive rate of a population in ideal conditions. So what does that mean? It just means that if we talk about biotic potential, like how many resources are available, how many offspring can realistically be produced. Like if everything's perfect, there's enough food, water, sunlight's great, everything's hunky-dory, what is the maximum reproductive rate of that population? And just to review, you should have seen this if you watched the Bozeman science video, but a lot of species have reproductive strategies that are not R or K selected. So some species fall on a spectrum, and one of a really great example of that are sea turtles, because sea turtles live a long time. If you guys have ever seen Finding Nemo, which I'm sure you have, and that turtle, he's like 150 years old or something. Turtles live a long time, but they don't really stick around to raise their young. They come up on beaches, they lay their eggs, and then they leave, and then the eggs hatch, and then the little sea turtles have to make their way to the ocean, and that's typically how it goes. So sea turtles exhibit K-selected traits in that they do live a long time, they're pretty robust, but then the R-selected traits of leaving their young and kind of leaving them vulnerable. So they don't really fall in exactly a K or an R selection. And then K-selected species are typically more adversely affected by invasive species than R-selected species, which are minimally affected by invasive species. So remember, an invasive species is a species that's introduced to an area that's not native to the area. And then typically invasive species are generalists, and they can really wreak some havoc on communities depending on what they are. A good example of that would be kudzu. So kudzu was introduced, it's a type of plant and that grows very fast, and it will just kind of like overtake everything. It grows really quickly, it's very robust. And I'll see if I can find some pictures and like insert it for you guys, but be aware of what an invasive species is. So if we're thinking about this, invasive species tend to be R-selected. R-selected species tend to be generalist, whereas K-selected species will be more likely to be specialist and more adversely affected by those invasive species. Okay, so that was your essential knowledge for your specialist versus your generalist. So we're breaking this unit down day by day, so you'll have one of these to watch every single day. What I need you guys to do now is sometime between now and when the assignment is due, which is Tuesday, March 31st at 11:59, go back into your assignment for Monday, find your generalist versus specialist assignment. If you open it up, it'll pop up. It'll be like a quiz. There are just some really quick questions to answer, and then there's part of an FRQ from a previously released exam. I want you guys to take a look at that and practice your FRQ skills. You guys don't have to upload anything. It's in a quiz form, so you type your responses right on Canvas and turn that in. And then that'll be due Tuesday night at 11:59. If you guys have any questions, let me know. Send me a reminder, send me an email, and we will continue in this fashion, just reviewing for your AP test, which is coming up. I don't know exactly when, but as soon as I find out, it's supposed to be April 3rd. They're supposed to make the announcement. I will let you guys know. So I hope you guys have a great day. If you have any questions, let me know.